DaveBullock, Monsters Under the Bed, Monsters Under the Bed, DaveBullock.
I remember clear back to when I wore diapers. I have such a clear memory of even a time before that. I remember going to a dance with my dad and coming home with my mom. I hated diapers. I couldn't stand diapers. I tried telling my mom, please, Mom, don't put me in those diapers, because even after that nice, warm feeling, they become so uncomfortable, and then I begin to cry, and you don't like it when I cry. So, Mom, please, please don't put me in those diapers. But she couldn't understand a word I was saying. So she stuck me in those diapers. And then she got my sister to take care of me at least twice a week, because my mom and dad, they were members of the Lions Club, and they had meeting every week, and they loved to square dance. And so they'd go out and go square dancing. Well, my sister was 8 years older than me, and she couldn't stand changing my diapers. She couldn't even stand taking care of me. Her girlfriends would come over and knock on the door, and they would, just a minute, okay, all right. And she'd run outside, and she had this like ice scoop, and she'd go over to the sand pile, and she'd grab this ice scoop full of sand, and she'd come in and she would pour it down my diapers and set me in the middle of the room. Have you ever tried to move with diapers full of sand? So I just sit there for as many hours as she'd be out playing with her girlfriends, and I'd just sit there and cry. The best day in my life, I remember, it's when I got my very own toity chair. Yeah, my mom says, sit on it, Dave, give it a try. And I did, and it worked. I was so proud of myself, because from that day on, I never had to wear diapers again. Now, what was my sister going to do? Ha! I had her. Well, when her girlfriends came to the door and my sister grabs me by the hand, takes me upstairs into the attic, because after all, I wasn't planned for. My dad built a house that accommodated as many children as they had, not as many children as they would have. And so finally he had to add on and make a room up in the attic for me, the little 2-year-old. I was terrified of that room, because the wind, when it would blow, the trees would wave back and forth and cast shadows on the walls, and my sister would tell me about the monsters that lived in the attic, and they were going to eat me. But this day, my sister takes me upstairs, puts me in bed, and she says, you'd better not get out of bed. And I'm like, I don't want to go to bed. It's not time for bed. And she'd say, do you know who Billy Christiansen was? Well, Billy Christiansen, he was a boy that lived down the street. And when he rolled over, just a little part of his pinky finger fell over the edge of the bed, and the monsters under the bed went and ate him. And he was never seen again. I don't like monsters under the bed. And she says, do you know Chad Murdoch? Of course you don't, because he rolled over and just a little bit of his hair fell over the edge of the bed, and he was eaten and never seen again. So there I was with the covers up to my eyes, and I was watching as the shadows of the trees danced on the walls of the attic, and I knew for sure they were monsters. They were monsters. They weren't trees. They were monsters. And if I fell asleep, rolled over, and a piece of my hand fell over the edge of the bed, I would disappear too. I would be eaten by the monsters. And so I laid there, and laid there, and laid there. And finally I went to sleep. and I woke up a little while later. I was getting kind of uncomfortable because my sister hadn't made sure that I went toity. And I didn't have diapers anymore, and I didn't want to wet the bed. That would be so embarrassing. And I'm laying there, and I didn't want to get out of bed because the monsters would get me. And so I laid there, and it got worse. And I laid there, and it got worse and worse. And so finally, I knew what I had to do. I got up. Carefully, I walked down to the edge of the bed. I was going to jump, launching myself through the air, over toward the stairs, run down the stairs, across the living room, down the hall, into the bathroom, and so I practiced, and I practiced, and I leaped through the air, jumping as high and as far as I possibly could, hitting my head on the ceiling, and I knocked myself out. Well, do you know what happens when you knock yourself out? You lose all control of your bodily functions. And I wet the floor. And then I woke up and I went, oh no, the monster was going to get me. I ran downstairs. The monster was right after me, grabbed me by the legs. He was pulling on my leg. I was pulling on. The monster had me by the leg. He was pulling on my leg, just like I'm pulling on yours.